Sex saves marriages. Some say I'm a goddess with both brains and compassion. I say I'm 20% girl brain and 100% fun. I want to help you navigate the labyrinth that is the female mind. If you're not having sex with her, what are you even doing? It's only too much sex when it interferes with your mission. What we're talking about translates not only into success with women, but into social and business interactions across the board with anyone. I want you to win in life, in business, and primarily in sex. I'm like Dr. Ruth meets Nina Hartley, except I only take my clothes off in public when there's tequila shots involved. I'm so excited for the show. Are you ready? Let's do this. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for the Bunny Show Live. We are talking about a survey that I put up on Twitter a couple of days ago, Twitter X, a couple of days ago, and I wanted to dig into the thoughts behind it. So the survey was all about what couples argue about the most. And this is self-reporting. This is opinions. Like, I get it. It's based on the 500 some odd respondents and their opinions. But the survey revealed exactly what I would have expected it to reveal. So it's certainly worth diving into. I want to talk about there, and I also had some write-in options. So I want to talk about kind of everything, right? I want to dive into this because I feel like so many men in this space in particular really to their detriment can relate most to more negative stuff. I mean, I hate to say that, but you can see yourself most in the stuff like this. Like, what do people argue about most? What are the biggest problems that people have? What are the it's not like the fun stuff. So we're going to dig into some gritty stuff today. And hopefully in doing so, you will better understand why you are arguing about this one or more topic, or how to keep yourself from arguing about this if you ever get into a situation where this is the main gist, the main thrust of the conversation, okay? I want to kind of go through these in the order that respondents said that was the main thing that they argued about, okay? And this isn't just what the respondents are arguing about. This is what their opinion or experience is. So that's pretty broad. I wanted to make sure that it was like, well, I don't really argue about this now, but in my last 5 relationships, I always argued about this. I wanted that to be the answer. Does that make sense? So, in your opinion or experience, what do couples argue the most about? And we are also going to go through the write-in comments as well. Number 1, strong margin is always money. It's always money. Money is a key factor that couples just do not tend to see eye to eye on, do not tend to trust one another on, and argue about the most. And I will say, spoiler alert, if couples are arguing about money, I think that has something to do with the money. I think that has something to do with the trust between them, not the money trust. But I think primarily, if people are arguing about money, hobbies, kids, stepchildren, jobs, anything outside of sex, I think, in my experience and opinion, that really it boils down to the couple not having a strong sexual connection. And I talk about this a lot. So this opinion, this educated opinion should not surprise you. But let's talk about money, because when you argue about money within your relationship, there is usually some credence there. There's usually something worth discussing. There's some problems. There's some financial crisis. There's some financial burdens. Let's talk about kind of the trigger points that cause couples to argue about money. Number one is different spending habits. Inevitably, one is a saver, one is a spender. One spends on specifically the stuff that you budgeted for that item, and one is all about the splurges. One is all about the impulse items. One is more impulsive. One thinks through their spending more carefully. You know, Fort Worth teases me because I will absolutely agonize over $150 purchase of something that is actually needed. However, in a heartbeat, I'll spend, I'll buy 15 $10 items without a thought. It's the same amount of money. So this is one of those categories where that kind of thing comes into play and causes problems in relationship. Power dynamics and control. Who's in charge of the money? Who decides how the money is spent? Did you decide at the front end of your relationship as you blended finances that you two were going to completely 100% share the burden of deciding how the money is spent? Or is one man or one woman in main control of that? Who pays the bills? Who writes the checks? Who makes the most money? These kinds of things all come into play with this power dynamic and control that men and women tend to fight about in relationship. Income disparities. This is huge. If both man and woman in a couple are working, if he earns a great deal more than she does, or vice versa, there tend to be a lot of arguments. If, however, there are a stay-at-home girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, parent, whatever, if there's a stay-at-home person in the relationship and a working person in the relationship, then believe it or not, it still needs to be discussed whether how that money is going to be spent. Because a book is going to tell you that if you're not working, that you don't really have as much say or control or whatnot over how the money is being spent. However, if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're in charge of buying groceries, you're in charge of entertaining the children, you are in charge of like the school needs and things of that nature, then maybe an allowance or something like that. But with income disparities, if you earn quite a bit more than the person that you are living life with, then that conversation needs to happen. How do you spend money, and how do you differentiate between what you spend and what they spend? Debt and financial stress. Whenever there are financial stressors in the relationship, and I mean like genuinely, like can't pay the bills, there's a big bill coming up, the AC just went out on the house and we need to replace it, and we don't have $15,000 laying around. These kinds of things cause financial stress, financial strain, and couples often do not know how to handle it. And so they automatically resort to arguing about it. Again, I will say that if couples are arguing about money, more often than not, in my educated opinion, it is really based in them not having a strong connection in every area of life. Meaning, A couple that argues about money, like really argues about it, like is bitter, they bicker all the time. It's a constant source of frustration and pain. They do not have a strong sex life. A couple who has a strong sexual connection, which is the only thing that differentiates a married couple or a love relationship couple from a buddy, a friend, a parent, whatever, okay? This sex is what differentiates it. So if you do not have a strong sexual connection, if you aren't connected in that one way that differentiates you, then you are not going to see eye to eye on other matters that relate to your relationship, okay? Other things are going to come between you if you don't prioritize the one thing that creates a bond between the two of you. I will say one good fix for the money thing, besides having more great sex, as far as true money frustrations and true money problems go, if there is a differential between the two earners, whether that means that one is a stay-at-home and one is working outside of the home or inside the home, one is earning more than the other, the balance of power needs to come to balance. So the spending that the person who earns more is going to be more. The spending of the person who does less, the responsibility is going to be less. Think of it as a percentage, okay? This is the safest way in love relationships of balancing incomes. And if there's a stay-at-home person, then that person runs on an allowance. And these are the things that person is responsible for. This works very well across the board and across generations. So keep that in mind. The second thing on our survey that that couples argue about the most is sex. Sex. And I couldn't agree more. So people argue about sex, number one, because they have mismatched libidos. They do not see eye to eye on the frequency, the intensity, the amount, the time of day, you name it. They have mismatched libidos. Now, this was not true when you first started dating, now was it? You don't fight about sex whenever you're first dating. That first 9 to 12 weeks of dating, her libido's way up here. It's sky high, and yours is sky high, and you're just passionately fucking all the time, as often as you possibly can. However, as the relationship starts to turn into a relationship, her libido inevitably starts to lower. It increases again when she decides that she wants something, usually babies. That is what increases her libido. Her desire for a wedding ring, her desire for the wedding, her desire for babies, her desire for kids. Women can be very manipulative with their sexual libido, their sexual drive. However, this first 2 to 3 months of her having a super high sex drive really isn't intentional. She's genuinely that excited. Now, the way to keep from letting that drop is to make sure from the front end that she understands that you value a strong sexual connection. And that if the strong sexual connection does not sustain, isn't there, if she doesn't bring the excitement, if she doesn't bring the sexual energy, you're out. You don't have it. You can be friends or you could argue with people. You could be roommates with anyone. The thing that differentiates you from all those other people is the sex. So if you have mismatched libidos, make sure that you do your best to backtrack. Now, this is why I wrote the mismatched libidos. This sex category is exactly why I wrote the Ignite Your Wife 30-day sexual reset course. It is meant for long-term relationships and marriages where sex is what they argue over. And it's either divorce or they get back on track. And a lot of times it's cheaper just to fix it. But people don't know how to fix it, which is why I wrote this course. Unsatisfying sexual experiences is another reason why men and women argue about sex, because he wants to try stuff and she's not willing. She's done stuff with other people and she's not willing to try it again with him. She didn't like it. She didn't have a good time. She felt dirty doing it. That he wants to fuck with the lights on, with the spotlights on, with the cameras rolling, and she wants to fuck in the middle of the darkness under the covers with no light to be seen. These are the problems when there's unsatisfying sexual experiences. Maybe he gets off and she never does. Maybe he doesn't notice that she never does. Maybe she gets her libido just lowers and lowers and lowers because she's genuinely not allowing herself to come whenever they are having sex. This happens. Sometimes it's not that her libido's low. It's that she's just bitchy enough to make sure that she doesn't have a good time sexually. And that is a terrible thing. Stress and lifestyle. Guys, stress and lifestyle plays a huge role in libido levels. If there is a dip in your excitement as a man for sex, I can 9 times out of 10 bet that has to do with a lot of extra undue stress in your world. It's hard to feel sexy when the weight of the world feels like it is crushing down on your skull, right? Emotional connection and intimacy. I would say that couples argue about sex in this category because she feels like he only touches her whenever he wants sex, and there's no connection or intimacy except for that moment. So he grabs her ass in the kitchen, and that's supposed to indicate that he wants sex. However, she's like, you never snuggle with me. You never touch me any other time. You never hold my hand. You never kiss me unless you want sex. The key is you absolutely cannot have a strong sexual connection if you're not naturally comfortable touching one another on a regular basis. So touching one another and maintaining intimacy and connection and contact, physical contact, goes a long way in ensuring that you do not fight about sex because you're having sex. And yes, you touch her whenever you want to fuck her, and you want to fuck her all the time. So you're always touching her. You're always groping her. You're always copping a feel. You're always smacking her ass. You're always holding her hand. You're always directing traffic. You're always directing her through the room. Make sure that you are connected physically all the time. Reach out and touch one another. This is a real thing, and this will help prevent you from fighting over sex because you're better matched. Number 3 on our list of survey responses was kids. 10.3% of my 551 voters said that they argue about kids. This is a big deal, and it really is remarkable to me how frequent this actually is, because whenever you're not married yet, when you're talking about kids, when you're married but you are discussing children, a lot of times it's names, it's what you want to have, it's how you want to raise them, but you don't really get into the nitty-gritty of discipline, of how you think that you would handle certain situations, of how you would run up against problems. Because quite honestly, every single fucking one of us, when we have kids, we think that our kids are going to be the exception to every rule, and they are going to be perfect in every way, and are never going to give us any problems, and are never going to be frustrations, and are never going to require any kind of discipline whatsoever. Like, we're all going to be just one big happy family, no matter how many children we add to the mix, and there will be nothing to ever argue about. This is the blinders that 99.9% of parents tend to go into parenthood with. And it's remarkable to me, even seeing the carnage of the child rearing, of the arguments, of the relationship shattering that goes on all around you. Every single parent tends to think that they are going to be the exception. And I hope you are. Listen, I hope you are. I have 3 children of my own. I got incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky. I have incredible kids, but it takes a village. It takes me. It takes my now ex-husband. It takes our families. We have a huge family network. We have a huge, great friendship network. We had a huge, strong church network. All of this plays in to making sure that these kids are well-rounded, healthy, supported, and wonderful. Okay. It's not all just genetics, and it's not all just a roll of the dice. I have seen some of the best human beings in the world have some of the shittiest kids. And I've seen some of the shittiest parents, just non-existent, abusive, horrible human beings, have some of the best kids. It has nothing to do with what they did. But couples argue about child rearing all the time. And again, if you are connected sexually, it is easier to unite as a united front when child frustrations and conversations come up. Okay. So this is sex is still a critical element of arguing or not about kids. So different parenting styles is one of the main factors that people who argue about kids have. They just, when it gets down to it, they do not see eye to eye as to how to parent. You're going too easy on her. You're going too hard on her. You gave her money for that. She should have earned that. You think she should earn it. Her job is school. You name it. It's okay if she leaves a mess. It's a family house. It's okay if there are toys in the living room or all over the house. She needs to keep her toys in her bedroom. That's why she has a bedroom. You name it. There are different parenting styles that will completely dictate how eye to eye you and your partner feel. Division of child care responsibilities. This starts with hey, it's your turn to go feed the baby. It's your turn to get up in the middle of the night and feed the baby. It's your turn to change the diaper. Have these conversations before you have a conversation about actually making a baby. Like, have the real talks. This is a huge factor that just pulls families apart for no reason. For no reason. Even families where both parents still have their own families intact, their parents are still married, their grandparents are still married. There's not really a history of divorce in their lives. They can still suffer this because you didn't see what it took to create you. You didn't really see the conversations that happened and the decisions that were made in order to raise you exactly the way you were. You need to have conversations ahead of time to make sure that you're raising your children the way you both see fit. And you need to have a plan of action in place. A great thing to do and a great practice for those who are considering having children, who have just had children, who have never had children before and aren't really thinking about it yet, but it doesn't hurt to have these conversations. You and your wife, both of you, sit down with parents, grandparents, both sides, all of the parents and grandparents, any people that you have trusted and respected over the years, parents that you see who have gone ahead of you, who have done it right in your opinion. Have a sit down with them. Buy them a meal, have them over to your home, ask for an hour of their time, and just interview them essentially about how they did it, because you feel like they did it right and we want to do it right also. These are great ways to prevent these kinds of arguments from happening. Financial considerations. Parents argue quite a bit over the spending over children. So whether it's the initial nursery, whether it's clothing choices, whether it's camps, whether it's school activities or needs, parents tend to argue because financial problems is number one. Financial concerns is a number one thing that couples argue about. So of course it's going to slip into all other areas that people argue about. It's just inevitable. Difference in parenting values and beliefs. This is a little bit different than parenting styles. So how they're going to be raised morally, religiously, spiritually, what it's okay. You know, there are parents who one is agnostic and one is Protestant, one is Catholic and one is Lutheran. I don't happen to have any great examples, but there are people who morally are not always on the same page, spiritually, religiously are not always on the same page. Their values, their traditions are not all the same, but you need to come together and decide what you're going to pull from each tradition, what you're going to pull from each value system, what you're going to pull from each belief system, and have that plan in place. And then don't be a snarky asshole about the things that you were raised with that maybe you've decided not to raise your child with, okay? Then it lessens the arguments over this. Work-life balance. This is a huge factor because women in particular tend to, these days, expect the husband. Let's say he's working. Let's say he's an executive. Let's say she gets to be a stay-at-home mom. She will still drive him absolutely crazy if he can't make every basketball game, if he can't make every t-ball game, if he can't make every cheer competition. He's working. He's financing all of this. So you are going to argue about this if you have unrealistic expectations about your time and the work-life balance that is necessary in order to keep a family going. My father was an executive. He was not home. He was not home. He left in the morning before I woke up. He got home at like 9 p.m. each night. This was our schedule. When he got home, I was already bathed as a child. I was already bathed. I had my cute little hairdo. I had my cute little pajamas. I went running to see him. I snuggled with him for I don't know how few or how many minutes. And I got put to bed. He had a nice dinner waiting for him, and he had a relaxing rest of his evening. It was my father's job to sustain the income. It was my mother's job to sustain the household and the children. These are the ways that work-life balance gets in the way, is when if my mother would have constantly badgered my father about attending every ballet lesson, or making sure that he took me to Girl Scouts. This stuff is unrealistic. So you need to have those conversations ahead of time, what that work-life balance really, really needs to look like, okay? Next, hobbies. Hobbies and pastimes are surprisingly something that people argue about in kind of a bickering kind of way. I would say that hobbies are kind of one of those undercurrent issues, you know, because people are jealous of the time that they take. They are jealous of the amount of money that is spent towards them. And they're jealous about kind of how passionate people are about them, right? So women want you to be passionate about them, but you're passionate about bow hunting. You know, this is how this happens. So differences in interests and priorities. Whenever men and women have differences in the hobbies that they have and the pastimes that they devote their time and attention to, it can become a rub because she loves to knit, but she knits at home. She doesn't actually leave the house to do it. Yarn isn't very expensive, but she's always available. This is the trick. She's always available to the family because she's right there. No, she doesn't like being interrupted while she's knitting or have to stop doing it in order to get up and do this or that, but she's there. However, your hobby is golf. You're not home whenever you're playing golf, and golf is a 4-hour hobby minimum, right? If you go out for a round of golf, we're talking, it's a while. It's a while. So there's a bitterness there. There's a seething kind of there because she's home the whole time and he's away. This is a problem. Time management and prioritization. This goes hand in hand. Again, it's the hobbies that you have separately that cause problems. If one takes a lot of time, if it's your all-encompassing thought, if it takes a lot of time, money, effort, energy, if it's all you talk about and you never talk about the kids, you never talk about her, you never talk about sex, you never talk about anything that she's interested in, this is a problem, right? This is where the bitterness, like I said, hobbies and pastimes are kind of like that undercurrent issue that are kind of always under the surface if there's a strong imbalance, right? Financial concerns. How many more guns does one man need? How many more bows do you need? How many more golf clubs do you need? Why do you need a golf cart to do that? Why do you need a ranger to do that? Why do you need a deer lease to do that? It's all encompassing. It's all encompassing. Again, the number one thing that people fight about, that couples fight over, is money. So of course, money is going to seep into all of these other categories other than sex. Because once again, if you are arguing about anything but sex, if you were having stronger sex, if you were having a stronger sexual connection, you would be more united in all these other areas. Also keep in mind that when it comes to hobbies and pastimes, you men tend to have hobbies. You have pastimes. And I encourage this. I'm not slamming you here. Women, once they become wives and mothers, that actually becomes more of a hobby and pastime than anything else they've ever done. They will let their dance go. They will let their crafting go. They will let any kind of hobbies or lessons or pastimes or ways that they like to spend their time go by the wayside because you and your children in your home become her hobby. This is something that men cannot seem to wrap their heads around. And I get it. I get it. Women will be workout fanatics until they get a boyfriend. And then they stop working out because they want to spend all their time with him or be available to spend all their time with him. She used to really, really, really love dance, but now she doesn't go to dance anymore. She doesn't go to dances. She doesn't go to lessons. She doesn't practice because she wants to focus on you. She wants to focus on your home. She wants to focus on your children. So hobbies and pastimes are this undercurrent problem that run through almost all relationships, unless you truly share the desire for the things that you like to do and you do them together. This is Fort Worth in my absolute life hack. If she mirrors your likes and your hobbies and your pastimes, and you genuinely enjoy doing them with her, and you genuinely enjoy teaching her how to do this and sharing that pastime with her, it's a win-win. Because then she's like, yeah, I agree. We totally need to go spend 8 hours out on that bike trail because that looks awesome and I love doing this with you. Or, yeah, you need a new motorcycle. Of course you do. You know, this one keeps dumping you and or it keeps giving you problems, or it's been out of commission. Of course you need a new one. Sell that one. Let's buy a new one. There are wins to when she is mirroring your activities and hobbies, right? Again, sex. If you have a strong sexual bond, it goes a long way. Now, there are 2 write-in comments. There are 2 write-in votes that got a lot of attention and that are real problems. You know, when we do these surveys on Twitter X, keep in mind, they only allow us to give 4 options for votes. So write-ins need to be necessary, right? So the number 1 write-in that I thought is a huge factor and probably kind of went in with the kids, but stepchildren and blended families cause huge problems. And it's really heartbreaking because you'll take a couple that's actually really well matched, that's really in love, that has a great time together, that genuinely has an amazing relationship, and you throw kid dynamics from different ways of raising, from different mixes, from different blends, and try to stick everyone together, even if it's just temporarily, like as they come and go, depending on what age they are, depending on how many of the kids live with you full time, it can cause a big problem. The problems are similar to the problems with your own kids, with arguments that we have already covered with like raising your own children, but it's like magnified when it's blended families, right? So different parenting styles. Again, if you parent this way and they parent this way, and they're trying to parent your kid and it's different, and if you haven't had real conversations and made real agreements about where those meetings are, then this can cause a real problem, like real problem. Loyalty conflicts. There's a lot of feeling of loyalty and disloyalty whenever kids, are in the mix from other families. Like, they don't want to be too close to you because they feel like they're abandoning their father. All of these kinds of like head games and head trash that goes on with blended families from the kid and the parent perspective. Different expectations and roles. Whenever my ex-husband and I married, I gained 2 stepsons, and they were amazing. I think the world of them. They are grown, amazing men now with families of their own and children of their own, and they're awesome. But my ex-husband told me at the time when we were getting married, when we were starting to have these conversations, he said, the boys don't need another mom. They just need you to be I was kind of a liaison, I was kind of like that middle person. It was that I wasn't supposed to be like nothing but fun, because I still had to lead a household. They all lived with us, everyone lived together. We were then blending because we then had children. So there's a lot to be said for having these conversations about kind of what the needs are of the children and what's okay and not okay when you blend families. Financial concerns. Again, that money problem, that 63.5% money problem, is going to infiltrate every other aspect of your arguments, of your relationship. And sibling rivalries, favoritism. There's those there's inevitably the kid that like the dad likes best. There's the kid that the mom likes best. There's the baby of the family. There's the eldest. There are the middle children. There are now new middle children, maybe if they're blended just right. Like, it can be a shit show. It can be an absolute mess. And that's where, if you are blending families, which is almost inevitable anymore, like, how do you not date single moms? Like, how do you not, as women, date guys who have already had children, whether when in wedlock or outside of wedlock? You know, blended families or taking on some of the responsibility of raising another man's child is kind of par for the course anymore. It's sad, but it's true. You can end that. You can end it with you. In your bloodline, it can end with you if you so choose. But it takes some real work and some real perseverance in this area. Keep in mind also, even in blended families, if you and your wife, if you two are united and strong and steady, and you have a great intimacy and a great connection, you are going to stand up against the frustrations of even blended families better, because you're going to genuinely want to see eye to eye. You're going to genuinely want to hear from the other person what they're thinking, what they're believing, and what they think will solve this problem. And you're going to reciprocate by being respectful and giving this the time and attention it needs to actually get to the root cause and find a solution. So if you are sexually connected, if you are intimately strong, if you are connected as a couple, you are going to stand up even against the frustrations of blended families even better. Last but not least, social media. This is one of those things that is becoming more and 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 more of a problem, right? You know, he liked that and she didn't like it. She's still friends with him and he doesn't like that. All of this stuff is just constant frustration. She posted that picture. He didn't like it. So, miscommunication. What are your intentions on social media? You know, if I got jealous for every like that Fort Worth put out on social media, I would be a wreck. I would be just a mess, because let's say for Facebook, he uses Facebook primarily for the personal training side of our business. Therefore, he is quite literally friends with like 5,000 people. He's friends with like every person that he's ever trained or has ever thought of training or has ever, in 30 years of being in personal training, has ever even like encountered in some way. Networks, people he doesn't know, people he does know, people that he thinks he should know. Exactly. It's an insecurity issue. I'm not insecure. And so therefore, the fact that he goes through and he likes and sees everything that everyone he's ever been friends with on Facebook has ever posted is fine. But there are a lot of people who have a lot of insecurity issues, just like Sarah Beth just said in the comment, that causes a major communication barrier and a major point of contention between couples. Jealousy and insecurity. I was getting there. It's a jealousy issue. It's an insecurity issue. She doesn't feel attractiveness because she's being lazy and not taking care of herself. He doesn't feel like she's gotten over her ex-boyfriend because he's insecure and isn't managing this relationship, isn't leading from the front. So there are a lot of problems there. Privacy concerns. This is a major factor in social media. There are a lot of men who genuinely do not want themselves to be posted in pictures or even in conversation on her social media feed. So she looks like she never does anything with him at all, where really he just doesn't like to be there. He just doesn't like to be there. There are concerns about showing the children. Even if your privacy settings are locked down, there's only so much that we're really protected from there, right? I mean, there's still some stuff that comes up. There's still some stuff that's revealed. There's still some times where if a picture of your child is out on social media, there's a lot of room for that to be shared in ways that maybe you did not intend. So always keep in mind, privacy issues are a major concern and a major rift between couples. Time and attention. This is time and attention, I think, is more often number one need for arguing over social media, because people don't feel seen because you're always in your phone. You're always on your screen. You're always on that social media app, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's, I don't know, Be Real, Twitter. It counts. It counts. You know, Facebook, Instagram, wherever it is that you are spending your time and attention is going to cause problems and jealousy issues with your partner, because you are spending an exorbitant amount of time with people who you don't know, who don't matter, and who aren't going to be there at the end of life when you need to be fed ice chips. But she will be if you keep this relationship strong. And if she respects your relationship, she will also prioritize you and not likes, not chase, Insta stardom, not find ways to show her ass online. She will be respectful of you as well. So social media is a huge, causes a huge rift between couples, and I think is only going to continue to become more and more of an issue. Again, like I've said in every other area of this survey, if you're arguing about this, then likelihood is you do not have a strong sexual connection that keeps you united, preventing this. Whoo, man. I mean, this is a big topic, but I'm hoping that by going through kind of what we see in everyday life, and this survey goes for what you've experienced, but is also what you've seen, your opinions and your experience of what's going on, and how we can prevent this from ruining your relationships. Because if you can keep from fighting about this stuff because of all the ways that we've talked about in this 48 minutes so far, then you can have a higher quality relationship and a higher quality of life. All that being said, this 20.7, this arguing about sex, I 100% say that 98% of the time, the real problem is based in your sexual connection and your unity because of it. So if you have a strong sexual connection, you more often than not, it's not that you don't ever disagree. It's that you work through it more easily because you genuinely want to see eye to eye. You want to be united. So if you are having that struggle, my Ignite Your Wife course is a game changer. It's a 30-day course. It's videos every day. It's emails every day. It's homework every day. And it will save you money. It will save you time, and it will save the quality of your marriage. 1,000%. In that vein, if you are planning your week and you would really like to maximize your time this week, I would like to invite you to please visit myplayboysbunny.com/men. Go to my consults. If you have a challenge, whether you believe it's sexually based, whether you believe it's relationship based, whether you believe that you're having trouble attracting the kind of women you want to attract, whatever kind of relationship, attraction, sex, dating, relationships, long-term, short-term, rotation, whatever kind of challenges you're up against. If you're planning your week right now, it's Sunday. That's what we do. We think ahead towards the week. We think, what does this fresh new week have in store? If you live in DFW, let's meet up. Let's have some coffee and let's talk in person. DFW Consults right there in the center. If you do not live in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, I have met with men literally around the globe, virtually for 6 years now, and I'm having a great time. It is so easy to get past the struggles and the problems that you're having in just a video call. 1 hour, and we can have real actionable steps for you to take to fix the problem that you are dealing with. So if this is something that is of interest to you and you are planning ahead for your week or your month, get in here, jump in here, submit an application for a consult, either virtually or in person, and let me meet with you and let's get past the struggles that you're having. Because, you know, life is too short to spend all of your time wishing for better, right? So let's take the steps to make sure that your quality of life is better, that you are attracting the kind of women that you most desire, that you're keeping that attraction strong, and that you are having mind-blowing sex and raising great kids. Like, there's all kinds of wins to making sure that your relationships and the women that you bring in and out of your life are high quality and worth your time, and that you're putting the proper time into it. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the Bunny Show Live. I love this show, and it dawned on Fort Worth and I, like last night, that we've been doing this show for at least a year now, and that just seems so just mind-blowing. I'm just so excited. I mean, I've been doing videos for years and years and years of various kinds, but having this stage to meet with you each week is a blessing to me. It gives me a lot of great insight into what you guys are dealing with more often than not. And I just really do not take your eyes and your time for granted. So thank you so much for joining me today and every day. I will see you guys first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, for Wake Up with Bunny, Monday through Saturday morning at 7. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a great rest of your week. Because remember, in all things, relationships, sex, attraction, I want you to win.